In the 1920s, Glasgow was the most violent city in Britain, not by a small margin, by a mile. Young men carried open razors as casually as they carried cigarettes. They slashed faces, they carved territories, they ruled entire neighbourhoods through fear, and the police were powerless to stop them. This is the story of Glasgow's razor gangs. Glasgow in the 1920s was a city choking on its own success. The shipyards had made it an empire of steel and smoke, but after the First World War, the work began to disappear. Unemployment tore through the working class tenements. Men came home from the trenches and found nothing waiting for them. The slums of the East End were among the worst in Europe. Overcrowded closes, shared toilets, entire families in a single room. Children grew up with no money, no prospects, and no way out, but the streets gave them something. A gang gave them a name. The razor cost almost nothing. A standard cutthroat blade purchased at any barber's supplier. In the hands of Glasgow's gangs, it became a weapon of terror. They carried them in jacket pockets, inside caps, tucked in waistbands. A slash across the cheek left a scar that never faded. It was called a Glasgow smile. Some gangs also carried broken bottles, bicycle chains, and iron bars, but the razor was the signature. Fast, silent, and devastating. Police records from the period describe wounds of extraordinary violence, men disfigured in seconds, faces opened from ear to chin. By the 1930s, Glasgow had dozens of named gangs. Each one claimed a patch of the city as its own. The Beehive Boys controlled the Gorbals south of the river. They were brutal, organised and feared. The Cheeky 40 operated in Townhead, north of the city centre. The Sandtoy held Calton and parts of the East End. The Kent Star ran the streets around Bridgeton, and there were dozens more. The Sticket, the Redskins, the Black Diamond, each with their own turf, their own enemies, and their own reputation to protect. Membership ran into the hundreds. Boys as young as 14 carried blades. Of all Glasgow's districts, none was more feared than the Gorbals. Tenemented streets packed with workers, immigrants, and the desperately poor. The Beehive Boys were its unofficial law. They ran protection rackets across the district. Shopkeepers paid up or their windows were put in. Rival gangs who crossed the river were met with iron. The gang had a loose leadership structure. There was no single boss. Power came from reputation, and reputation came from violence. Those who fought the hardest climbed the highest. Those who showed weakness disappeared back into the tenements. The gang fights were not quiet affairs. They were announced in advance. Word would spread through the tenements that a battle was coming. Dozens, sometimes hundreds, would gather at the agreed location. A waste ground, a railway embankment, a dark stretch of street. Then they ran at each other. Razors drawn, chains swinging, bottles smashing. Men were slashed, kicked and beaten. The fighting could last minutes or go on for an hour. Bystanders fled. Police arrived to find bodies and blood and an empty street. The gangs had already vanished into the tenements. By the early 1930s, Glasgow's gang problem had become impossible to ignore. Newspapers ran headline after headline about razor attacks. The Evening Times and the Daily Record covered gang violence obsessively. Readers across Britain read about Glasgow with a mixture of horror and fascination. Then in 1935, a novel changed everything. No Mean City, written by Alexander MacArthur and H. Kingsley Long, was published. It followed Johnny Stark, a Gorbals hardman known as the Razor King. The book was raw, violent, and almost entirely set in the slums. Glasgow's establishment hated it. They called it a slander on the city, but the public devoured it. For the rest of the century, No Mean City defined how the world saw Glasgow. In 1931, Glasgow appointed a new Chief Constable. His name was Percy Sillitoe. He had already broken gang cultures in Sheffield and Nottingham. He looked at Glasgow and decided on a simple strategy: meet violence with violence. Sillitoe recruited the biggest, hardest officers he could find. He formed them into plainclothes squads and sent them into gang territory. They did not make arrests first. They waded in with their fists and batons. Gang members who wound up in court often arrived battered. No one asked too many questions. Sillitoe's approach was brutal, extra-legal, and almost certainly illegal. It also worked. By the mid-1930s, the worst of the gang era was fading. Sillitoe's squads had fractured the major gangs. Key figures had been imprisoned, hospitalised or killed. The slum clearance programmes were beginning to break up the old tenement communities. When you move a gang's territory, you scatter its power. The Second World War then took entire generations of young men away from the streets. Many never came back. The gang names faded. The Beehive Boys, the Cheeky 40, the Santoy, all gone. But Glasgow's appetite for organised violence did not die with them. It evolved. The Razor Gang era left permanent marks on Glasgow. Thousands of men carried scars to their graves. A culture of street violence became embedded in how the city saw itself. Later generations of gangsters in the 1970s and 80s grew up with these stories. The hard man mythology that No Mean City planted never really died. Scholars, criminologists and historians still study the Razor gangs today, because what happened in those Gorbals streets in the 1920s and 30s was extraordinary, not because of the violence itself, but because of what drove it. Poverty, hopelessness, a city that had no use for its own young men. The razor was not just a weapon, it was the only power some of them ever had. Percy Sillitoe went on to lead MI5. No Mean City was still in print 8 decades after it was written. The Gorbals was demolished and rebuilt and demolished again. But the stories survived. They survived because they were real. Because those streets were real. Because those men were real. And because Glasgow has never been a city that forgets.